Hey, Steve Zaki with the Traction Reaction Podcast. I'm here with Kaz Grala. We're at Road America, and you're doing some Trans Am racing with Weaver Racing. And Trans Am Series just seems to be getting a lot of momentum. Tell us what's the contrast running NASCAR one week and then Trans Am?
The cars are much different. These Trans Am cars are actually crazy fast, super, super fast. A lot of grip, a lot of brakes. So they're a blast to drive. But you're right, the series is healthy. And I love the atmosphere over here. The NASCAR garage, NASCAR is serious. It is, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of egos. And that's what the top level of professional sports looks like. You come over here to Trans Am, everybody's passionate. Everybody just loves it. They're having a great time. They're here this weekend. They just want to be. There's nowhere else they'd rather be. So definitely a different dynamic, a little bit more fun and lighthearted over here, and I'm having a great time. We just finished up qualifying, and we're on the pole for our second week in a row with a track record. So that is really, really cool. The Weaver Racing Concepts car is just flying around here.
Yeah, speaking of money, you ran with Floyd Mayweather at Daytona, and with the new NASCAR Cup car, when I first saw it, I said, it looks like a Trans Am car. So going from last year's car to this year's car in the Cup Series, how much closer is it to these Trans Am cars?
They're definitely going to be closer. Last year, the Cup pole, I want to say, was a 2-minute, 14-second lap. I'd expect the next-gen cars to be a couple seconds quicker than that. They might be down to 12s, maybe even 2:11s. I'd be shocked if they were down below 2:10s. I don't think they'll be quite that fast. We just ran a 2:02.89 in this thing. So, these Trans Am cars are like scary fast. It is pretty badass to drive. And, this weekend wasn't even planned for us. We were just doing a one-off last weekend in Mid-Ohio. We got the pole and track record there, led most of the race. We ended up having a mechanical issue that took us out of the battle for the win, unfortunately. But our sponsors, Technique Chassis and Steel and Coatings, were so thrilled. They said, well, what would it take to jump on board for another week? We're like, as a matter of fact, there's one next week up in Road America. They said, let's do it. So really cool to be here, which was not even expected. Now another pole, another track record. What more could you ask for? So hopefully tomorrow we can close it off in the race, do what we know we can, and see if we can spray some champagne on that podium tomorrow afternoon.
Hope so, because for them to come to such an iconic track too, I think they're going to really enjoy themselves. Who knows? They might finish out the season with them. I would have so much fun.
I would love that. Yeah, and they always get great car counts here at Road America because people love it. Everyone loves this track. I don't think anyone's ever made a lap here and said that wasn't fun. This place is just one of my favorite road courses. So this will be my 5th consecutive year racing here. The last 4 I've done the Xfinity race here. So really, really glad to be back.
So how does a guy from Boston come into the Cup Series? But you've done the Mission Pilot Series. You've raced late models. Doesn't matter. I love a young drivers coming up through the series, drive anything, and getting track time. I look at some drivers, I get frustrated with maybe an IndyCar driver that was only driving 12 races a year. I'm like, no, you need that track time. You look at guys in the 60s and 70s, they were always running it. There was never an open weekend. It seems like you're doing that. Do you think that it's kind of helped you in making contacts, meeting sponsors, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no doubt that being here this weekend, doing what we're doing and accomplishing what we're accomplishing in the Trans Am car is a great thing because we've got the NASCAR Xfinity garage, the NASCAR Cup Series garage here at the track this weekend. So if there's ever a time to shine, this is a good weekend to do it. So I love racing anything I can get in. I've done sports cars, I've done ovals, short tracks, I've even now done a little bit of dirt. I just love to do it all. And this year has been a very pleasantly busy year for me. I've had a lot to drive. I'll be in the Truck Series next weekend out at Mid-Ohio. So all over the place, behind the wheel anytime I can. And I do think it's definitely good for a young driver because, for instance, when the NASCAR Cup Series switched to these next-gen cars, some of those old veterans had a learning curve because they've been in the Cup cars for 10 years. The younger guys are used to being a little bit more flexible and driving this, driving that, driving here, there. So when they threw the next gen at them, they were like, oh, okay, this is just different like everything I've been racing that's different. You just kind of pick up on it. So I think it's definitely an advantage to be a versatile driver that can do anything.
If some sugar daddy came up to you and $1 million check said, Kaz, what series do you want to run in? You can one race, one type of car. What would it be at this point?
Well, I mean, pricing matters on that.
Yeah.
I picked the Cup Series. That's my ultimate dream. The reality of it is I don't know how far the $1 million check gets me in the Cup Series.
Right.
But, the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, there's so many great opportunities there to prove yourself to be that Cup driver down the road. I've had a great opportunity this year to drive for several Xfinity teams, to drive for a truck team. One of my favorite teams to have worked with this year was Big Machine Racing in the Xfinity Series. And coincidentally, Scott Borchetta, the owner of that, he races in TA2 himself here in Trans Am. So, networking and trying to make those connections so you can position yourself for the future is the key. So, whether or not that ideal sugar daddy comes along, I don't know, but I do take pride in trying to make it the old-fashioned way, because there are drivers that are able to make it with the sugar daddy, and that's great. I would love that to be the case, but I've been kind of doing it the old-fashioned way, scratching and clawing for opportunities when I get them. And to be honest, I think that makes it that much sweeter when you do get those opportunities. And hopefully one day, if I do ultimately make it to the Cup Series as an established veteran, then everything will be much, much more worth it. So we'll hope that over the next few years I can try to work my way towards that goal.
What's your biggest win so far?
Biggest win? Well, I mean, I won at Daytona in the Truck Series in 2017.
First try, right?
First try. I was 18 years old.
Goes to Daytona, drives a truck, wins it, and you got the pole.
And I got the pole. So, that was one of those races that you're not old enough to drive at Daytona until you're 18. So that I had turned 18 at the end of December, and that was just in February. So it was just under 2 months since I had turned 18. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. Really didn't know what to expect because I'd never done a race like that. Wasn't old enough. So first try, you go in, and you're like, all right, well, I'll just try to survive to the end, learn about it. You figure maybe I can win Daytona in a couple years, 5 years. Did not expect to be able to win it that first year. That I think, as much as it shocked anybody, I think it shocked me more. I just didn't expect to be able to be in that position, and chaos happened on the last lap. I put my truck in the right spot, made it through, and when I came out of the smoke, there was no one in front of me. So that was a really, really cool win. And I feel like your first win, especially with it being at Daytona, it's hard to beat that. But
when did it sink in?
People have asked that, and I'm not sure it did. Honestly, sometimes you think your whole life you work towards those goals, and that's a huge win that as a little kid you would dream of that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when it then happens, it's hard to really soak it in and appreciate it and let it hit you like it would that little kid that you were thinking about it beforehand. So it's one of those special wins that I don't know that it ever does fully sink in. And I feel that same way about my Cup debut when I filled in for Austin Dillon in the 3-car for RCR. I grew up as racing the number 3 car, Bandoleros, Legend cars, late models. Never in a million years would have thought I'd make my Cup debut in the 3. Thought that was impossible. Went out and finished 7th. So I would say while Daytona was my biggest win, I feel like that was my biggest race. If I had to point to a race to say that was probably the turning point in my career, the most valuable performance, I'd say it was that week.
Tell us a Floyd Mayweather story.
Well, actually picks up right there. After I had made that Cup debut with RCR, it opened a lot of doors and started a lot of conversations that were not otherwise going for me, and one of them was the Money Team Racing. So that was the end of 2020. We ended up making our debut at the beginning of this year, 2022. So that was about a year and a half in the making. behind the scenes that nobody really knew, because it seemed like it all came together so fast, and it did in some sense. It really accelerated down towards the end for it to all come together. But that conversation had started a year and a half beforehand with Will Ockermoody, who's the general manager of the Money Team Racing and is an associate of Floyd's. So what a cool opportunity that was, too, to get to run Cup races with them this year, and hopefully we'll have some more on our schedule.
Yeah, that certainly would be awesome to see, because he'd be a great addition to the series, and he's such a dynamic figure. Well, is there one thing I kind of stuck on? Because when you see guys like that, I mean, we've all met famous people, and but I mean, people don't realize when they walk into the room, you know it, and they have that personality. See one of those guys?
He is, absolutely. He has that aura of success and status. He's a household name across the whole world. Which there is celebrity, and then there is global household name. So there's a number of people. There's a couple already in the Cup Series as well. Michael Jordan and Pitbull, I would say, are two that
They're brands.
globally known brands.
Yep.
And Floyd is absolutely that. So it's unbelievable to get to work with and drive under the banner of somebody of that stature.
That's pretty cool. Kaz, appreciate it. Thanks for taking time out.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Traction Reaction Podcast. Don't forget to like the video and please subscribe. We'll see you next time on Traction Media.